UFC Fight Night Brunson versus Shahbazyan takes place this weekend, and I can't wait to break down this card. I'm going to be going through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my predictions for every single fight, starting with our early prelim opener of, and it's a great early prelim opener, Chris Gutierrez versus Cody Durden. Cody Durden, a bantamweight, stepping in for this fight on short notice. It's only logical to stick with Chris Gutierrez here. He's been on a bit of a roll recently, ending his last fight against Vince Morales via leg kicks, and Vince Morales is no slouch. Before that, he beat Geraldo de Freitas Jr. Before that, he beat 10-0 at the time, Ryan McDonald. Chris Gutierrez is a savage. I think he's going to continue his streak, destroying Cody Durden right here, because Chris Gutierrez was supposed to be fighting Luke Sanders in this matchup, and I actually still had Chris Gutierrez winning. So the fact that now they've got a bantamweight stepping in on short notice in Cody Durden, who hasn't really beaten anyone of note, that tells me he's going to be able to take on Chris Gutierrez. I'm definitely going to be picking Chris Gutierrez here, and I don't see how you could do otherwise. But then again, Jesse Ronson just beat Nicholas Dalby, so literally anything goes now. Anything could happen. I'm just picking Chris Gutierrez because I feel like it would be stupid not to. Gutierrez gets the job done, probably by leg kick TKO or just a TKO in general. Moving on up the card, Jamal Emmers versus Timur Valiev. Looking forward to this one. Jamal Emmers coming off a close fight and lost to Giga It was a split decision. I thought he lost the fight, but it was a close one. I picked him to win that fight against Giga because Giga has the most padded record in maybe MMA history. Jamal Emmers is a great fighter. He's had great performances throughout his career. He failed on the Contender Series against Julian Erosa, but then came back, beat everyone in his path, got back into the UFC. He's finally earned his spot, but he's coming up against a guy in Timur Valiev. 16-2. Russian, you know, like, it's just a bit of a problem here for Jamal Emmers, and I feel like Timur Valiev is going to go out there, get the job done. I see him taking Jamal Emmers down and just being a little bit more gritty and having a bit more in the tank as the rounds go on to just out-grapple Emmers, outwork him. Even though Emmers has a bit of a length and range advantage to Timur Valiev, I feel like Valiev's going to be able to get the job done. He's fought taller opponents before. He's fought guys with range. He'll get it done. I reckon he takes down Jamal Emmers and gets a TKO or submission victory in the second or third round. But Jamal Emmers is a tough guy and should be taken seriously. I am definitely going to be going with Timur Valiev in this bout, though. Moving on up the card, 2, Marcus Perez versus Eric Spiceley. A great matchup on the prelims. Marcus Perez coming off a loss to, I believe it was Wellington Turman. It was a close loss. It wasn't a great performance from him. He showed up at the weigh-ins looking like the Joker, and I thought he was going to go viral if he got a big win against Wellington Turman. He lost to Wellington Turman. It was a close fight, but still, Wellington Turman beat him. But Wellington Turman is a dangerous guy. So I don't mind that loss from Marcus Perez. Marcus Perez also beat Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, James Boknovich, Ian Heinisch as well by a triangle choke in the first round. I mean, that's nothing to scoff at. I mean, that's a real big win. Ian Heinisch, who was undefeated at the time, you handed Ian Heinisch his first ever loss. I mean, Ian Heinisch is a savage. I really do credit that win for Marcus Perez. But I think the reason why I'm picking Perez here over Eric Spiceley is because I just don't trust Spiceley to show up in shape. He never shows up in shape anyway, and he's not in good shape anyway, so I don't really think it's going to be that much of a difference. I just feel as though the people who are not 100% dedicated to their diets recently have been showing up in worse and worse shape under the current circumstances. Eric Spiceley's had a bit of a career. He's had some damaging losses. I feel like he's going to get beaten by Marcus Perez. I'll say by decision. I think Marcus Perez hurts him over the entire fight, breaking him down, and Spiceley just can't get off in the third round, and Perez takes over as the fight goes on, getting the job done against Eric Spiceley. Moving on to the prelims, Ray Borg versus Nathan Maness. Again, anything could happen in MMA. Nathan Maness is a real featherweight, trains under Brandon Davis, who's the same guy who trains Jason the Kid Knight, if you don't know. Ray Borg is a dangerous guy in the bantamweight division. I feel like he's going to get the job done against Nathan Maness. This one's taking place at catchweight. Oh no, it is taking place at bantamweight. So Nathan Maness, who was a featherweight, is moving down to bantamweight to take on Ray Borg. I feel as though Ray Borg is going to get the job done. I like the way he looked against Ricky Simone. I don't think it was a bad performance against Ricky Simone whatsoever. I don't see it being a split decision. I'll say that much for sure. I had it a clear 2 rounds to Ricky Simone, but Ray Borg looked really good in that fight. Great body shots, great chin as well against a guy who's big and powerful in Ricky Simone. I mean, Ray Borg has still got it, and he's still young as well. I don't actually know how old Ray Borg is. Let me check real quick. 26 years of age. you don't realize it because as soon as someone fights Demetrius Johnson, you feel like they're at the twilight of their career. They're at the massive peak of their career when they get to a title shot. But in the flyweight division, you can make your way to a title shot so quickly. And Ray Borg is still 26 years of age. That's crazy to me. I think he gets the job done against Nate Maness. Greater grappling. Nate Maness has not fought anyone on the level of Ray Borg whatsoever. In fact, I don't really think Nate Maness has beaten anyone of any kind of quality whatsoever. I don't mean to completely trash him. He's 11-1. He's fought some decent competition. I just don't think he's fought the kind of guys that are going to just take you down with a double leg and hold you against a cage like Ray Borg is going to. Not to mention, Ray Borg had a fight signed, I believe, against Merab Dvalishvili. Let me check. Merab Dvalishvili in June. On that card, whenever that was supposed to happen, Merab ended up getting a short notice replacement opponent. So we know that Ray Borg has been ready to fight and been in training camp. He fought Ricky Simone. A month later, he turns around to fight Merab Dvalishvili. So he is ready to go right now. All systems go for Ray Borg, not for Nathan Maness. I just feel like I'm going to pick Ray Borg here. As much as there seems to be a lot of guys that are making their debuts in the UFC. I mean, we saw it with the guy that KO'd Frank Camacho. I think his name is Jesse something. I can't really remember his name. But we've seen a lot of it recently where these new guys come in, go crazy, and just happen to get the upset against these bigger guys under the circumstances. I just don't think that at bantamweight, that same chance KO in the first round ability is there. Especially against a guy as tough as Ray Borg. I think Ray Borg grinds this one out for a unanimous decision win, getting the job done against Nathan Maness. Ray Borg gets it done. Moving on to the next fight on the prelims, Ed Herman versus Gerald Meerschaert. Great matchup. Wasn't the original matchup supposed to be made. Gerald Meerschaert steps in on short notice. He said he was ready to step in on short notice for any of the bouts that ended at light heavyweight, or any of the bouts that got cancelled at light heavyweight. Gerald Meerschaert steps in. I actually really like Meerschaert. Although he might have lost his last fight and he didn't look the best against Ian Heinisch and he did get TKO'd, I don't mind his chances here at light heavyweight because if you watch his fight with Deron Winn, I know Deron Winn looks small to every single middleweight, but Gerald Meerschaert is a huge guy for that division. I actually feel like moving up to the light heavyweight division is going to help his chin, it's going to help his output in my opinion. He's not going to be draining himself the day before. I feel as though Gerald Meerschaert has what it takes to move up and get the win against Ed Herman because Gerald Meerschaert, the one thing you don't want to do against Ed Herman is stand there and brawl with him. Because Ed Herman, for a guy who's been through the ringer of his career so far, got beaten left, right and centre, beat other guys but went to war with them. Like, Ed Herman has had scraps throughout his career, but his chin seems to be okay still for some bizarre reason. So if you get into brawls with him, like Ed Herman's last opponent did, you're going to end up in a little bit of problems. Ed Herman's last opponent was Kadis Ibragimov, who just lost to Roman Dolidze by head kick, but still, he still got it against good guys. He beat Patrick Cummins. That's still a decent win by a knee in the first round. Ed Herman is still dangerous. I just feel as though Gerald Meerschaert is not going to play the game necessary for Ed Herman to tee off on him in a brawl. Gerald Meerschaert's a little bit too technical. He's got a nice, long, rangy jab. I think he's going to stick it in Ed Herman's face over the 3 rounds, earning himself the unanimous decision victory. Actually, no, hang on. I pick Gerald Meerschaert to win by 3rd round submission. I think it's going to be jabbing away, leg kicking away, keeping the distance, slowly breaking down Ed Herman until there's going to be a moment in the 3rd round where Meerschaert goes for a takedown on a bit more of a tired Ed Herman. Something that Gerald Meerschaert... I know Ed Herman had a full camp for this bout, but the fact that Gerald Meerschaert weeks ago said he was ready to jump in against anyone at light heavyweight that had a fight fallout tells me that he has stayed ready. The loss to Ian Heinisch, although it was a TKO loss, it wasn't brutally concussive. He did get dropped by a big shot, but then he just took a couple follow-up shots. He didn't look really badly out of it or anything. It just looked like he got knocked off balance, couldn't get his wits about him, and took a couple shots before the ref stepped in. It wasn't too bad, plus he's moving up in weight as well. If this was Gerald Meerschaert coming back to middleweight this quickly, I would 100% probably bet against him. But he's moving up, he's long, he's rangy, I think he gets the job done against Ed Herman. In fact, Gerald Meerschaert has a weird career because in his last few fights, I mean, he lost to Jack Hermanson, he lost to Thiago Santos. Those losses look really good in hindsight, don't they? He's had every single win until the loss to Kevin Holland, which was a split decision that could have arguably went to Gerald Meerschaert, and we know how good Kevin Holland is now after his performance against Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. Gerald Meerschaert is a savage. He could have beaten Kevin Holland. In my opinion, he definitely beat Eric Anders 2 rounds to 1. I don't know how they gave that to Eric Anders. Although it was a close fight and Gerald Meerschaert got rocked in the 3rd round, I thought he clearly outstruck Eric Anders for the majority of that 3rd round. We don't just give someone a round because one guy gets rocked for a few seconds, unless the guy does something with it. Either way, they took the fight away from Gerald Meerschaert. He could arguably be on a 4-fight win streak before his Ian Heinisch bout. I like Gerald Meerschaert. He's beaten good guys. He keeps beating good guys. I feel like he's going to get a jump against Ed Herman and finish him in the 3rd round by submission. Moving on up the card to our headliner of the prelims, Frankie Sainz versus Jonathan Martinez. Jonathan Martinez is a dangerous, dangerous man. Been doing pretty good recently until this fight with Andre Ewell that a lot of people thought he won. In my opinion, watching it live, I didn't notice that Andre Ewell was hurt to the body as much, but watching it back, seeing Andre Ewell react the way he did to those body shots, it would be hard not to give that fight to Jonathan Martinez. It was a hell of a robbery, but then again, it was at UFC 241, Jones versus Reyes. So it seemed to fit in on the night with decisions, which is why when at first the card was over of UFC 247, I didn't react to the Ewell versus Martinez win as much as I maybe should have, because it just seemed to fit in with the rest of the bullshit robberies on that entire card. Andre Ewell should have lost that fight. Jonathan Martinez should arguably be on a 3-fight win streak. Got the KO in the 3rd round against Ping Wang Lee, who's a decent fighter, 15-4 at the time. That's a good record. Lost to Andre Sukumtat, which really does annoy me. Andre Sukumtat is so bad. He's so bad. And the fact that Jonathan Martinez lost to him does kind of worry me. But then again, it was his UFC debut, which kind of tells me that maybe he took the fight on short notice. I'm not entirely sure on that. Maybe some of you guys can look that shit up. But a loss to Andre Sukumtat stinks to me. It stinks because he's not good whatsoever. But still, Jonathan Martinez has bounced back. He's a young guy. He's going to get a jump against Frankie Sainz. Frankie Sainz 12-6 now. Getting a headliner of the prelims, so good job for him. 39 years of age at bantamweight. At these older weight classes in light heavyweight, middleweight, you can kind of be a little bit older because you don't need to rely on your reaction time and speed. You just need to rely on your power, your experience, a little bit of grappling and strength. These things you can keep a hold of as your age gets up there. In the lower weight classes, I don't think you can be above 35 and be successful. I just don't. You can do it at other weight classes in the UFC, but when your entire division is based around reaction time, speed, it's just going to go away with you with age, and I feel like Jonathan Martinez is just going to be operating at a different frequency to Frankie Sainz. Not to mention Frankie Sainz is coming off a 1st round TKO loss to Marlon Vera. No harm there, but still, a 1st round TKO loss to Marlon Vera. But then again, went to a split decision with Merab Dvalishvili. I thought Merab won that fight as well, so that's another thing. But since then, I mean, Frankie Sainz hasn't beat a single opponent other than Henry Briones, who was 16-7 at the time, since 2015 August. I'm going to be going with Jonathan Martinez here. He's on a roll right now. I consider him on a 3-fight winning streak. He's going to be operating at a completely different speed to Frankie Sainz and get a TKO finish, in my opinion, maybe in that 1st round. I think he's going to be too fast, too quick. Sainz is coming off a KO loss. I'll go with Jonathan Martinez getting a quick finish, and maybe we could see something like Jonathan Martinez versus Jack Shaw, Brett Johns, any of these guys floating outside the top 20 that are looking for opponents to get them a ranked opponent next. Jonathan Martinez is going to be in the mix with those kind of guys. Moving on up the card to the main card. Kevin Holland versus Trevin Giles. I love this matchup. Kevin Holland is an amazing fighter. I love watching him fight. Although he's had some close matchups, he doesn't really belong at middleweight, I've noticed over his career, because he is a small guy. Although he's long and rangy, he's very skinny for the middleweight division, and it's not like he's Adesanya style length. You know, he's a tall, long guy for the division, but he has fought some big guys. Alessio Di Chirico was a huge guy, you know? Gerald Meerschaert was a huge guy. Like, and he's still going toe-to-toe with these guys and looking good in the process. Lost to Brendan Allen, but then again, who hasn't in the UFC that's fought Brendan Allen so far? He's beaten everyone he's fought. Good performance from Kevin Holland in his last one out against Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. He trains in tournaments outside of the UFC, which really is something that I really like fighters to do. If they go to a jiu-jitsu tournament, I really like that because it tells me that they're focused in on their fighting career. They're looking to learn things, and they're not worried about getting tapped out in jiu-jitsu tournaments either. You know, he fights and he loses to someone in a grappling bout. I like that. It shows me that your ego is not so massive that you can't be seen getting you can't be seen losing to a guy outside the UFC. When you're fighting on camera in jiu-jitsu tournaments, I like it. It just shows me that you're willing to learn and willing to lose, because he's not going to go and beat a full-time jiu-jitsu practitioner in a jiu-jitsu competition. It just doesn't work like that, but he's willing to learn from the process. I like Kevin Holland. His striking is better than Trevin Giles. He's rangier than Trevin Giles. Trevin Giles is a big guy and 27 years of age, equally as young and youthful as Kevin Holland. Also got a good reach as well. I just feel as though Kevin Holland's going to get this one done, because Trevin Giles, you should have beaten up James Krause. James Krause is a lightweight that moved to welterweight. A natural welterweight size, but still a lightweight that moved to the welterweight division, that took a fight with you on a day's notice. And he was coaching another fighter, which means he definitely wasn't training and being ready for a fight. And in my opinion, James Krause won that fight. So I don't know what to think about Trevin Giles. He's had some controversial losses before that as well, with Gerald Meerschaert choking him out in the third round. Not controversial, but just a little bit worrying. Like, if he was going to be something special, he is going to smoke Zach Cummins. He didn't smoke Zach Cummins. He went to the third round in a bit of a lackluster performance and ended up getting choked out in the third round. I mean, I don't think Trevin Giles is this amazing, promising contender. I feel as though Kevin Holland is, because even in his UFC debut against Thiago Santos, go back and watch that fight. That was a back and forth exchange for the majority of that fight, until eventually Thiago Santos started to get the better of things. But Kevin Holland showed a great chin, great grappling on the ground. I don't see Trevin Giles winning this in the grappling department. I especially don't see him winning it in the stand-up department, because Trevin Giles, other than his boxing ability, he's got a great 1-2, don't get me wrong. Really good 1-2. I just don't think Kevin Holland's going to be there for that. You're trying to fight as Trevin Giles in a 1-2 boxing range. Kevin Holland's fighting at a front kick, jumping side kick to the body kind of range. It just doesn't work out for me. Kevin Holland's going to catch Trevin Giles coming in. I actually think he's going to finish it with a body shot, a front kick to the stomach. He's going to utilise that well here, as Trevin Giles likes to lean over and throw that 1-2 to cover distance. Holland's going to stick a front kick in his stomach every single time he tries to do that and get the job done against Trevin Giles. Moving on up the card, Bobby Green versus Lando Vannata II. Why is Bobby Green's name first? Lando's higher ranked. Oh no, Bobby Green's higher ranked apparently. Well, there you go. Bobby Green versus Lando Vannata II. The first fight was a draw. It was a back and forth war of a fight. I love it. And this way as well, because it was a draw, a lot of people are saying they shouldn't have made the rematch so soon. We can still have a trilogy of this if both guys don't really get what they want out of the next few years. Bobby Green versus Lando Vannata II is an amazing matchup. I feel as though Lando's going to get the jump on Bobby Green, just because I wasn't too impressed with Bobby Green's performance against Clay Guida. I thought Bobby Green was going to go out there and chin Clay Guida and really get him out of there in the first round, because that's kind of what you're supposed to do at Clay Guida right now. You're supposed to really beat up Clay Guida if you're going to really hang with the Lando Vannatas of the division. For example, if I picked a fight between Lando Vannata and Clay Guida, I would bet a lot of money that Lando would go out there and completely annihilate him, in my opinion. But that's okay. I just feel as though Lando Vannata is going to get the job done against Bobby Green. Also, to be mentioned, Lando Vannata was tooling up Bobby Green in the first 2 rounds. The only reason that he ended up losing some points and rounds is because he got tired as the rounds went on. He seems to have fixed that problem by pacing himself a little bit more. We saw that in his last fight against Yancy Medeiros. He's controlling his output, because before he just used to go a little bit crazy with the spinning techniques and the flashy shots and the flashy footwork, and you can only do that for so long at a certain pace. He started to control himself, to control his output. He's still 28 years of age. Bobby Green, I just feel like he's going to lose to Lando Vannata. Lando Vannata has been looking good, especially in his performance against Yancy. He just kind of put on a clinic against him. I think he's going to dance around the outsides, outpoint Bobby Green over 3 rounds. It's going to be a fun fight, don't get me wrong. I just think Lando is going to be less willing to brawl this time. In fact, I think Lando gets the TKO. I could see Lando getting a TKO in the second round. I think there's going to be a feeling out process in the first. Both guys touching at each other's legs. Bobby Green sticking his chin up in the air, trying to land a 1-2 in a boxing combination. Maybe a good front kick or 2. I just think Lando's movement's going to be a bit too much. And I think he's addressed his cardio problem, which is the only thing that kind of gave Bobby Green a chance in their last fight. So I'm going to be going with Lando Vannata getting the job done. He's younger. In my opinion, he's improved more since their last fight. He gets the job done by second round TKO. Moving on. the people's co-main event, Vicente Luque versus Randy Brown. But I'm not angry at it being a feature fight. I'm actually kind of glad. At least this way we get to sandwich a women's potential title elimination bout next for Valentina Shevchenko, who knows, into the co-main event, giving them a little bit of a spotlight and building some hype behind that fight. But Vicente Luque versus Randy Brown is a great contest. One thing I do want to note is that Vicente Luque does very well against taller opponents. We've seen this against Giles Turner. Now, I'm not saying that Giles Turner is in any way the same level of Randy Brown, but he is a long, rangy guy with a similar frame to Randy Brown that Luque seemed to have no problem coming up against. Randy Brown has a very long reach for the division. Something interesting to note, however, is that Vicente Luque is not far off his reach. Luque has a ridiculously long reach for a 5'9" guy. Ridiculously long reach. And I think that's why he gives these tall guys so many problems, because they're so used to having their own way in the range control department. They don't expect to get hit by shots that Luque tags him with, because he's got such long arms for his frame. I think it's going to be a problem for Randy Brown. He looked really good against Wale Alves, but then again, Wale Alves was doing good that fight until he gassed out. Then Randy Brown kind of capitalized with a triangle. I think it was more Wale Alves losing that one than Randy Brown getting it done. But still, Luque coming off a good performance against Nico Price, where it was back and forth before the end, but he showed patience. He's turning around quickly. He's been more active than Randy Brown. He's beaten better competition than Randy Brown. He's lost to better competition than Randy Brown as well. I think that Luque gets the job done against Brown, TKOing him in the first round, actually. I'm not even joking. Randy Brown's been KO'd before in his career, most notably to Nico Price. He hasn't really had too many amazing wins in his career. I mean, he beat Mickey Gall. He beat Brian Barberena, who had a great fight with Vicente Luque, to be fair. I just feel as though Brown doesn't have the style to beat Luque. In my opinion, to beat Luque, you need to keep it on him with volume and pick him apart. Like Wonderboy did, like Leon Edwards did, like Brian Barberena was doing as well. Randy Brown just doesn't seem like that kind of fighter. I think he's going to try and stick and move, and I think that's going to play into Luque's game. He's going to hunt him down, chop at the legs, eventually come upstairs and get himself a KO win. I'd say in the first round. I think this is going to be vintage Luque, staying active. He knows exactly what he's doing by taking this matchup. He's improving his contract. He's improving his ranking spot in the process as well. He's staying active. He's learning more. He's the younger guy. He's got more to improve on. I think Luque gets the job done against Randy Brown. Moving on, Joanne Calderwood versus Jennifer Maia. Decent fight. Not the best fight in the world, don't get me wrong. I feel as though Joanne Calderwood's going to get this one. She was getting in shape for a 5-rounder with Valentina Shevchenko, which I believe was supposed to happen a few months ago by now, or a couple months ago, 1 or 2. So she's in shape. She's taken this fight. I know why she's taken this fight, because she knows if Katlyn Chookagian signs a fight with Cynthia Calvillo, and that happens before Joanne Calderwood signs a fight, then the winner of Chookagian versus Calvillo is going to get a title shot. This is Calderwood's way of staying active, not getting passed up. I think she knows what's on the line here. A title shot. She's going to get the job done against Jennifer Maia. I like Jennifer Maia. I just think she's going to lose. She hasn't really beaten too many amazing fighters. I start to think less and less of a win over Roxanne Modafferi. But then again, it's so hard, because Joanne Calderwood hasn't really beaten any great fighters. Ariane Lipski, I guess, is a better win now that we've seen what Lipski can do. She beat Andrea Lee. I mean, she has got some better wins. She beat Courtney Casey. There's only so much to fucking go off sometimes, really, with these women's fights. I mean, she made it competitive against Cynthia Calvillo and Katlyn Chookagian. Jennifer Maia kind of did the same thing, but I'll go with Joanne Calderwood, I guess. There's really nothing to predict this on. I just feel as though Joanne Calderwood's bigger, stronger for the division, rangier for the division. She can keep it standing, keep it where she wants it on the feet, where she's got the range advantage, and she's going to get the job done against Jennifer Maia. Moving on to the main event, Derek Brunson versus Edmund Shahbazian. There's a part of me that was sad that the original main event didn't make it on the card. I'm kind of glad that this one got the main event now. I kind of am. Because Derek Brunson versus Edmund Shahbazian is a great matchup. Like, really is. And I'm glad that it got the main event, because this is going to get the spotlight of the show. And I feel like this card, it doesn't have a huge name. Just going to have people talking about it before the fight starts. But this card's one of those cards with so many fun matchups that it's going to be those sleeper cards. You know, where it's crazy and a great fight card, and everyone's going to be talking about it afterwards, and I think it's going to end with Shahbazian brutally KOing Derek Brunson in the first round. I think he gets it done. I mean, he's at a reach disadvantage, but he controls distance so well. He's so calm in the first round, and his calmness, I think, is going to actually win him this bout. He's taller than Derek Brunson. He's shown good grappling in his career. He had a bit of a suspect fight against Darren Stewart. I thought he won that fight quite clearly, but Darren Stewart had some success, I guess. I just don't think Derek Brunson has shown me enough in his recent fights to tell me that he's going to beat a guy like Edmen Shahbazian. I mean, he beat Ian Heinisch, but he got dropped in the first round, and then Heinisch just kind of gassed out, and Brunson walked him down throwing pathetic jabs the entire time. Like, when Brunson wins fights, again against Elias Theodorou, is that a win? You know? I like Brunson. He's a fun fighter to watch. He used to be. Recently, he seems to have changed his style to be a bit more patient. I actually feel like if Brunson came out there like the Brunson of old, like the Brunson that came out against Robert Whittaker, he'd have a much better chance of beating Edmen Shahbazian. But this new Brunson that's more patient, that's more relaxed, that likes to feel things out, you're not going to be able to feel things out against Edmen Shahbazian. He's too relaxed in that first round. Brunson has shown he's a little bit hesitant. He's a little bit overreacting in that first round. He's a bit jittery. I feel like he's going to get KO'd by Edmen Shahbazian. It's just a trend in Derek Brunson's career. Beat two guys below you, lose to the next upcoming thing. Happens with Whittaker. Happened to Adesanya with Brunson as well. He's had a lot of KOs now in his career. Off the top of my head, recently I can think of Jacare twice, I believe. But definitely once. I think it happened twice overall in his career, though, if I remember correctly. They've definitely fought each other before. I think he finished him in exactly the same way as well, with a head kick and then punches. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Derek Brunson also lost to Whittaker by KO. Israel Adesanya by KO. I mean, I'll go through his career even more. I mean, it's just tough to pick Brunson when we've seen what we've seen. He got TKO'd by Yoel Romero, but was doing okay in that fight. TKO'd again, yep, by Jacare Souza. I thought so. I mean, it's just too many times, man. Especially when Brunson fights the way he does, when he comes forward with his chin out in the fucking air. Shahbazian ain't going to have it. He's got great takedown defense. He's going to tune up Derek Brunson in that first round, earning himself a first round finish. Shahbazian gets the job done by brutal KO. I think he gets it by a straight right on the button. Right on the button as Brunson comes in. There's going to be a bit of an exchange. No, hang on. Shahbazian's going to tag him with a straight right. Brunson's going to do what he normally does, which is fall into you with his chin. I don't know what he's trying to do. I think he's trying to touch people with his chin for some bizarre reason sometimes in these fights. Shahbazian's going to land those uppercuts that he did against Charles Byrd. He landed him on the Contender Series as well. He was throwing him against Brad Tavares once he had him hurt. Brunson is a guy who covers up, so I think those uppercuts that Shahbazian throws, one after the other, are going to lead to the end of this fight in the first round. Shahbazian gets it done. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button there. Goodbye. Great card.